welcome to another D&D Stories. I am your host, TheWriter, and this is the show where I sit here in front of a shelf full of gaming stuff and tell you all my D&D stories. Now, we return once more to the setting of Dragongren for the campaign, The Iron Heart of Innis. And I know it's been a while, but somebody didn't get his dates straight, and then yours truly was in the hospital, and etc., etc. I'll put a link in the description below. Excuses, yada yada. It's been a while. Let's get to the story. Now, if you recall last time, we tracked a hag into the inn and tavern where we were staying while she was looking for the Iron Heart of Innis, which I have on my person, and the book, which our paladin, Eden, has on her person. We separated them in case one of them happened to be stolen. Now, we had since leveled up, finally, so everybody at this point is level 5. Yeah, level 5, so for those of you that are following along number-wise. And we killed the hag and threw it in the bed so that there wouldn't be a panic, and then everybody pretended to be drunk as passerbyers went by the room, and as soon as they were gone by, that session ended. So we picked up straight away. John, our not cleric, shuts the door and he goes, okay, what do we do from here? And they put like smelling salts or something under Cryptbreaker James because he passed out at the sight of all that blood. And they have to make a plan straight away because, you know, hags are nasty as it is. A dead hag is going to start smelling pretty quick. So they decide that, you know, having been given all the hints that we have and left the screaming ring behind, that we need to go to the apartments or the home of Tom Lem. Tom Lem is the guy who sent Cryptbreaker James the letter that sent him to the cathedral. So, you know, we're getting a chain of employers in here, and you'll see how this expands on itself. So we go, okay, Tom Lem lived in Carlahort, so that's the town where we're in now. And being that he was a colleague of mine, Cryptbreaker James can tell everybody exactly where he lives. So we go there straight away, no problems, and we discover it's basically a dormitory, like a professor's, not really tower, but like, yeah, basically a dormitory. It's 3 stories tall. There's lots of rooms. The front room has a front desk with nobody behind it and a wall of inlaid mailboxes with locks on them and stuff like that. And we stopped to open his mailbox just in case we don't find anything, because Tom Lem has only been missing for a few days, so who knows, there could have been some cryptic correspondence in there, but there was not. At the same time, on the way up the stairs, because he lived on the 3rd floor, we see a pair of what we think are cat burglars on the way up. A skinny guy and a fat guy. And in the background, I'm thinking, please be Horace and Jasper. Please be Horace and Jasper. And if you get the reference, good for you. They're picking a lock on the 2nd floor. And, you know, being that we are in a hurry and might need to get out of town pretty soon with a dead hag in one of our hotel rooms. Well, next door to one of our hotel rooms, but you get what I mean. We need to get in and get out, and somebody else, you know, being broken into is not really our business. So we think, okay, maybe those guys will bumble into something and provide a distraction. And we head on up to the 3rd floor, and it's a normal lock. It doesn't take long. This is kind of where Cryptbreaker James shines, because, you know, locks and cryptology and things like that. And we get into Tom Lem's room, and it's about what you would expect. It's a small dorm with writing desk and papers all over the place, and, you know, there's bits of oxidized armor laying around the room. All of it mismatched, all of it ancient, some of it broken into pieces. There's like a pauldron over there, and a piece of a breastplate over there and some iron boots over there. All of it is ancient and beat up, and you wouldn't wear it. In other words, these are artifacts. And we start going through his papers, and we find out that Tom Lem broke the cipher. The book that had the Iron Heart of Innis in it, he figured out how to read that language. And if you remember, I told you that we couldn't even recognize the lettering. Like, if you see Russian, you know it's Russian. Or if you see Chinese or Japanese, you can wager a guess on one of them. But the lettering or the symbols in the book that had the Iron Heart of Innis in it, we couldn't even wager a guess, which kind of blew my mind, because I took the sage background, so I knew Common, Draconic, Elvish, all the fancy languages. Even though Cryptbreaker James doesn't know magic, he can read magic, because 99% of magic is written in Draconic. So the fact that he couldn't even recognize the lettering was kind of a blow to his ego. Tom Lem apparently broke the cipher, but unfortunately did not leave a key behind, like, this symbol equals this symbol equals that, which, I wouldn't think it would have been, a 26-letter system. Or maybe they don't even read left to right, or maybe we're holding the book upside down, or we have to read it backwards, or whatever it happens to be. It could be a code. It might not be a language at all. We don't know. But Tom Lem could do it, apparently, because he had just scraps of paper, just notebooks and junk and things written all over every which way, written at a very quick, scrawl, like he was on a time limit. And while we're going through all this stuff, who should come up to the door that we've closed and locked but the cat burglars from before. The fat guy and the skinny guy? Yeah, they start fiddling with the lock, and we hear one of them go, "I told you it was on the 3rd floor." And it's like, they were sent to fucking break into Tom Lem's room. So Cryptbreaker James immediately puts his finger over his lips, like, shh, we're gonna let him come in and surprise him. Because, we've already seen Kinku, and we've seen, hags in disguise, and we've seen displacer beasts. Who knows what these guys actually are. Turns out they were just regular cat burglars. So as soon as the door opened, John, our buff not cleric, grabs this guy by the front of his suspenders and just yanks him what did he do? He waited for the door open, and he's like, "Hi, Cupcake," and just grabs him and pulls him in and slams the door. The fat guy takes off running, and Eden, of course, takes off after him, and immediately brings him back, threatens him with her halberd. This guy's not going anywhere fast. And, since we named the skinny guy Cupcake, we named the fat guy Jelly Roll. So in the back of my head, I'm like, it's Horace Cupcake and Jasper Jelly Roll. So we bring them in and we grill these guys, because we can't tell, or I can't tell rather, are they actually human? Are they hags in disguise? Are they the same as the old guy on the road? Turns out no. They were hired by a beautiful elven woman at a nearby tavern, that this place was going to be empty and abandoned, and that surely there would be things of value in here. And we grill them some more, and basically just threaten them in every way we can. And we find out that this beautiful elven woman said that they could have everything in Tom Lem's apartments, but she wanted any books that he had. I was like, okay, that was the same elven woman that turned out to be a hag who we killed earlier. So everybody here is hiring everybody else. There's a lot of puppet mastering going on, and it goes even further. To swallow the spider to catch the fly, and I don't know why she swallowed the fly. Perhaps she'll die. We'll get to that, don't worry. But we go, after we find this out, we basically give them a good spanking and send them on their way, because they're lowbrow. They're nothing compared to us, and we send them on their way. We could have had them arrested, but then we would have been involved with law enforcement, and given all the crap that's gone on in town, best to do our investigating and get out. So we send them on their way with a stern warning and wet pants apparently. And we paw around, and what was that? I don't know. We paw around and we find that there's a letter from an undisclosed person or persons that hired Tom Lem to find the book that had the Iron Heart of Hinnis in it. So somebody hired Tom Lem. Tom Lem hired Cryptbreaker James. Cryptbreaker James hired these other three people. And the hags hired, the Kinku. And the hags hired these two dorks that are playing cat burglars. So it's on and on up the chain to figure out who the hell is actually pulling all the strings here, because everybody's hiring everybody else and nobody knows why. So I think the top of the chain was probably the hags. Whoever sent the letter also enclosed a cat's eye jewel. And remember I told you that money in this setting is very strange, and I hadn't quite gotten a grasp on it. The cat's eye jewel was worth 12 gold. And that doesn't sound like much, but if you remember, shoot, I forgot his name, Neath, our ranger, got a quiver that can shoot any element arrow for 3 gold. So apparently quite a bit of money, 12 gold. So I think I ended up with it, and then I gave it to Neath anyway. So he's going to end out decked out. I probably should have given that over to Eden, but whatever. What was I saying? So yeah, he got paid a lot up front to find this book, and he tracked it down with his notes, and he had like a map with X marks the spot on the cathedral, and then another X marks the spot on a nearby foresty swamp kind of area where, the sun can't get through the canopy and it smells bad, and there might be bullywugs and things like that. And so, that's our next breadcrumb. And we kind of hover there for a while, and we take one of the artifact, like oxidized piece of armor, or whatever it happens to be. I'm starting to wonder about, Warforged, and not andesite, adamantium, golems, iron golems, cinnabites, anything that is intelligent, that's composed of metal, and can apparently write in an indecipherable language, unless you happen to be a college professor like Tom Lem was. So I'm trying to theorize what these could be, but it's like Lost. We're not getting enough. We've got too many questions and not enough answers. So we decide, okay, this map, out of character, this map is obviously our next breadcrumb, so we need to follow this. And like I said, we've dealt with the cat burglars. We take the gem with us because, Tom Lem's gone, and, I'm never going to get paid. Actually, I probably should have kept that gem, because I retrieved that book, and then I never got paid for it. Because the guy that hired me is dead. So, I should have ended up with that gem. Damn it. Or rather, we should have sold it and then given everybody 3 gold. Because I did promise everybody, 1/4 of X. That's probably what I should have done. Because I'm doing the... what did I say? Lawful neutral? Neutral good. Yeah, neutral good. So I would have to keep my word. 3 gold for everybody, I guess, if we had sold it. But we did not sell it on the way out of town. We made a quick stop to buy things, which, again, I hate doing during, like, game time. Because, again, it's been like a month since our last game, so I didn't want to waste any time buying anything. But Cryptbreaker James, thinking ahead, bought a bullseye lantern. And if you don't know what a bullseye lantern is, it's basically just a regular old lantern, but instead of shining in all directions, it shines more potently in one direction, like a bullseye. Or not like a bullseye, God, like a spotlight. It's basically a portable spotlight that runs on lantern oil. So we go, and it's not far away. This is a very finite region. I'm glad that we're not like traveling across the countryside to do this. But we get there, or rather we rest at a different inn, and then we go, and we get there by afternoon. And I'm thinking, okay, we're going into a new environment. We got to be careful. It's gonna smell. I'm in my head. I'm worrying about like methane and other like bad chemicals that are gonna make people pass out, poisonous frogs, and all that kind of stuff. And we got a very thorough description. It's just like overrun with, you know, water and mud and droopy trees, and it smells bad, and there's a few like methane vents here and there, and it's got mosquitoes squeaking in your ear, and it's hot and it's humid and it's just gross, and you know, it's a tropical swamp. It's very dark. There's only like a pillar of light here and there getting through the thick canopy, and we come across what I'm guessing was a battleground, because we find a nomadic bullywug camp. And if you don't know what bullywugs are, imagine like bullfrogs, but they walk upright, and they have like spears and loincloths, and they're tribal and gross, and the biggest among them is always the boss, and so around the level of goblins, but they're swamp frog people. And they're just fucking massacred. There are nobody left standing here. And, you know, I got the impression of like 30 or 40 dead bodies just being clawed open, freaking ripped by magic, all kinds of things like that. And, you know, Cryptbreaker James, like, stops and, like, shines the light around like something is gonna fucking burst out of the darkness and eat his face. Because that's already happened several times in the past, so, since he started following these people around. And, he goes, you know, James, Neath, or God, John, Neath, I cannot read a battlefield like I can the runes on a crypt wall. You know, what do your elf eyes see, basically? And John looks around because he's been in the war. He's a veteran. He's, you know, stuff like that. And he leans over it, and he's like pushing aside like flaps of gross skin. These guys have been here for a long time, like 3 or 4 weeks worth of decay, but everything's so wet that they're not gone yet. It's really nasty. And he goes, well, this looks like slash marks, like claw marks, after the appropriate checks. And he starts thinking, well, you know, what do we know that does slashing and clawing damage? Hags. So not one hag, but several hags out among us, which means there is a coven somewhere. And covens, if I remember correctly, can be anywhere from like 2 to 9 hags. So we have an undisclosed number of nasty, ugly magic users running around in this fucking swamp, apparently ripping the shit out of anything that comes close enough, because bullywugs are nothing. You know, they're, like I said, they're the rough equivalent of goblins. They have no bearing and no vast intelligence. You know, if you saw one casting magic, it would be in the newspaper, you know. So there was no threat here, but they were all just ripped to shreds. And we check around, and we check like the throne of sticks, and, you know, we check the leader and stuff like that. Not much of anything among them. And meanwhile, while we're going through this nasty landscape, the vines that are hanging off of the trees and stuff start like coming up around our ankles and start like trying to grab us, like really weak, really slow. and we kind of like have to kick them off and like shine the light on them to push them back. And the early Twilight princess, swing the lantern around to make the bad stuff go away, that kind of stuff. But eventually, while we're surveying this place, a voice shouts across, out of the thicket, seize them, and all the vines just jump and try to grab us. John, our not cleric, and James, myself, get grabbed, and the other two do not. So this battle starts where two hags come out of the thicket, and flanking them, coming up with them, are a pair of displacer beasts. More fucking trans-dimensional cat monsters. And I thought, oh god, here we go again. So I'm got this horrible like hentai scene in my head where I'm just like crucified on these fucking vines holding me. And one of the hags is like dressed in nasty robes and has like a carved stick, so it's kind of like a magey kind of feel. And the other hag, unfortunately, has like really like skivvies and a just like torn, barely covered, nasty hag boobies flopping around. Oh god. We made so many like hag boob jokes while we were there. It's like, oh no, the areolas are like nasty green salamis. You're gonna have to roll a will save or a fortitude save to not barf when you see her boobs flopping around. They're so gross. It's like she died in water. It's so nasty. I think he called it a sea hag, actually. So it's really gross, really ugly. Got the hook nose and the warts and the fetish hanging on her hip, and it's all nasty. I was like, for God's sake, woman, put on a shirt. And it's like, her boobs are so nasty, you failed your constitution save. If you don't see a bodacious pair of tits within the next 1d4 days, you'll be cursed with the memory for all your life. So you have to run to the nearest tavern, put down like 3 gold and be like, honey, just flash me, please. So this fight starts straight away, and Eden throws the hunter's mark on one of the displacer beasts so it can't like vanish into nothingness, so we can see where it's going. And Neith is throwing arrows. We're trying to get loose. One of the hags runs straight up to me, and again I'm held by vines, and she must have tripped or something because she rolls a 1, and instead of hitting me like dead on, she hits one of the vines that are holding me, so I can kind of wiggle free on my next turn, but I rolled like a 2 on my initiative, so I'm going last either way. And so this fight continues, and John gets free, I think by sheer strength. Must have been. Watch the raw footage and see where I'm wrong about this battle. But they fight, and Cryptbreaker James is not a combat character, so he's not only last in line to go, but he's last to get free and to do anything about what's going on. So while the electric arrows are flying and the fire arrows are flying and Eden's swinging that massive fucking, axe on a stick around, Cryptbreaker James is held up in these vines. So when it finally comes down to my turn and I get free, I land, and I'm like, okay, what do I do now? But the turn comes back around to the sea hag first, and she's right behind me and tries to make a swipe, but I must have landed funny and not been hit or anything because she didn't do any damage. So I've still got the lantern, the bullseye lantern, in my hand. The first hag goes down, takes a few too many arrows in the face, and I can see the other one, it's robes and a carved stick, so it's gonna be magic at some point. And I think for a minute, and I go, what is that Olympic event where they have like the stone with the handle on it? And they go, isn't that everybody around the table goes, isn't that the hammer throw? And I go, yeah, I think so. I'm gonna hammer throw my lantern, because no dagger is going to help against a hag. They actually have a good number of HP. So I spin about and I roll a 17 and plus strength, so 20, and this lantern goes sailing through the air, and I go, well, on the off chance, it has a glass lens, so if I threw it hard enough, it might break and like shower her with oil and fire at the same time. And the DM goes, okay, well, I'm going to roll a d6. Even it doesn't, odd it does. And he rolled odd. So I hammer throw this fucking lantern, and it shatters on this hag and throws oil all up and down the front and back of her. And, of course, it's still lit, so it lights her on fire as well. And this battle ends very quickly. I think one of the Displacer Beasts got away because both of the hags were killed, so, it has no master, so it runs away. But we ended up coming out of this pretty unscathed. I think Eden, our paladin, took, 10 points of damage because when the Displacer Beasts first show up, they just, tagged her in the back, like what happened to me the first time. So it's very clear that the hags were in charge of the Displacer Beasts. I don't know, maybe not in the crypt, but at this point, yeah, because as soon as they were gone, because as soon as the hags were gone, the other one ran. So we got 3 out of 4, not too bad. And we don't really find anything on them. We find, some rat guts and, the skull of a blue jay and, the stuff, the junk, the nasty things that they use to cast their foul magic. We found a bunch of that, but not much else. And we make more hag boob jokes. They're like, oh god, they're so nasty. They flop around like they're dead in water, and you'll have to watch the raw footage just because we go off on a 5-minute tangent about how gross hag boobs are. I was like, why can't we ever fight, bodacious nymphs or something like that? The answer to that is we would all walk away blind, but you get what I'm saying. It's nastiness. And we go to examine the bullywugs some more, and, now that mess is over. And I thought I think there ended up only being 3 total hags, 1 in town and 2 here in the forest. And I did get kind of a 3 Fates vibe off of them because one of them had an eyeball that, using a spell somewhere else, you could see what the eyeball sees. And, they're nasty, they don't have a lot of teeth, so 1 eye, 1 tooth, and 1... Yeah, kind of like the hag, the 3 Fates from Greek mythology. That was kind of cool. But we go and we examine the bullywugs some more. There's nothing on the throne. There's nothing on any of the regular soldiers. These are sharpened sticks they're walking around with. The king, on the other hand, has a bone spear, something really fancy for a bullywug. And the blade of this thing is 8 inches long, carved, and the attachment that's on it is a femur that's 4 feet long. And I was like, what the hell kind of bone is this? Did this come from a dinosaur? Are there dinosaurs in this fucking swamp? Are we gonna have water and do the scene from Jurassic Park where it's boom and it ripples and boom and it ripples? Are we gonna run into dinosaurs here? I hope not. But Neith ended up with this bone throwing spear. He's ending up with all the magic items. I'm starting to get a little peeved about that, but nobody else can really use it appropriately. So we haven't found any magic swords, any magic halberds, and Cryptbreaker James isn't really a combat character. During that entire combat with the hags and the Displacer Beasts, for the 2 rounds that he was free, he hammered through the lantern and then slashed one of the hags for 2 damage. So John's over there doing his sword dance because he's got 2-weapon fighting. I'm under the impression that he's a fighter now because he does so many consecutive attacks. And Neith's over there picking a different element for every arrow, and freaking Eden is swinging that giant distance, axe on a stick, halberd thing, squashing shit. And Cryptbreaker James gets down from the freaking vines. He's like, with his little butter knife, and then runs for the tree line, because it's not what he does. I've basically turned him into a coward at this point, just because that's not what he does. Not everybody's meant for battle. So when he gets free, he swings his dagger for 2 damage and then runs for the nearest tree to hide behind. I thought about pulling my bow, but shooting into melee, number 1, bad idea. Number 2, I'd probably just hit somebody. And that's kind of Neith's thing, so pulling out a bow, So after we find this bone spear, and we give it to Neith, because Neith has all the magic items. We gave our dog a bone. Oh, I remember that joke now. It's been like a month between games, because we called him a dog when he brought the stick back. We gave the dog a bone. That's funny. I'm gonna have to rib him for that. He's got a bone spear now. We find this cave straight away, and we peek inside. It's got vines hanging over it. It's got a few vents of methane here and there. I part it and peek inside. It's dark. My lantern's busted, so we have to light torches. And we go down and we find the hag lair, the hag nest, and there's a fletching station and bedrolls and piles of nasty spell components and things like that. And I'm like, okay, this is it. This is where they were. And based on what we find, I think there aren't any more hags, unless one is just out on the trail and might come up behind us, but I find it unlikely. So I think that was all of them. So we get this horrible chain of events. Maybe it was the hags that hired Tom Lem. Tom Lem hired me. I hired the rest of the party. The hags also hired this person. The hags had this person to swallow the spider to catch the fly, and I don't know why they swallowed the fly. Given that they are so well versed in disguised magic and making themselves look like hot elf chicks, I'm not sure why they hired so many people, but I don't know. Maybe just because it's hard to work other magic if you're disguised, or they just didn't want to risk it because crypts are dangerous, or they couldn't get to the proper books to decode things like that. I don't know. There was a long chain of events to make this happen, but I think the hag trio was at the top of this hiring chain, because inside this cave, amongst all this junk and crap that is of no use to us because we don't use hag magic, is a door. And not just any door, it's like a Dwemer door. It's bright, bronze with black, and there's places to rotate shit, and chains and pulleys and levers, and just it's, Cryptbreaker James, having made so many crypts in his time, can tell that, if he had to make something like this or order something like this, it would be mega super expensive, but it's not of any design he's ever seen. So we have come across some sort of pocket, our lost hatch, if you will. And I'm wondering, is this... It's basically a puzzle box, but it's a door. So we're going to have to figure out, is there a key? How are we going to open this? And that is where the session ended. We ended on a cliffhanger this time, of course. So that is the end of the third part of the Iron Heart of Innis, and I hope you join us next time. So until then, keep gaming.